Good morning. This is Rich. I'm back at it. It's a Tuesday. I'm here at the antique shop, Main Street Antiques and Uniques in Grapevine, Texas, and I'll be here all day. Well, at least till 6 o'clock. Remember, on Tuesdays we're open from 10 in the morning till 6 in the evening. That's the way it is every day, except for Sundays. We're open from 12 in the morning to 6 in the evening, and then of course Mondays we're closed. I work here at the shop now every Tuesday, and then let's see, Wednesday through Saturday I'm out at the warehouse in Denton, and then Sunday and Mondays I take off, and that's my new schedule. So just to let you know. But I wanted to take some time today and talk about a area of collecting that I am an expert in and certified to do appraisals and tell you everything you need to know about rare coins. Now, I know a lot about collecting a lot of things. Antique works of art, which is, works of art or paintings really more than anything, is definitely my favorite. It's fun. It's fun to go out hunting and find a treasure in an antique mall or a garage sale, flea market, on Craigslist, on whatever, Facebook Marketplace, which is really a good source. I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I've been here for about a year. And I used to live outside of Houston. I lived outside of Houston in Beaumont for about 10 years, and then I moved to California, and then ran as fast as I can to get back here to Texas for a lot of reasons. But anyway, that's a whole nother story that I'll save for another time. But the one area of collecting that I've become an expert in, not my favorite thing to collect personally, uh, are rare coins. And how that story started is I retired from the military. I did 22 years, excuse me, 20 years active, and then a year and a half in the reserves, or a year and 3/4, something like that, before I went active. So I was a Ranger, paratrooper, all those kinds of things. Was in a scout sniper section for a while as a squad leader, then a platoon sergeant. So I was enlisted and did that. So infantry guy, ground pounder, bush beater, uh, grunt, all those different names in the military or in the Army, 11 Bravo. So I was 11 Bravo 3 Victor, 11 Bravo 4 Victor, which just means that I was Ranger qualified. And I did a little stint in the 2nd Ranger Battalion at Fort Lewis, Washington. But most of my time was spent with the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and 1st of the 504th Parachute Infantry Regiment, Red Devils and Baggy Pants. Very famous unit that goes back a lot of history in World War II, and just very interesting. And when I retired and moved to the Houston area, uh, I wanted to be a federal air marshal, but for some reason couldn't get into the program because I was 6 months too old or something of that nature at the time. Now I think they have waivers for paratrooper ranger types, but back then they didn't. They didn't want to pay me 2 federal retirements, so of course I was a little upset about that. But God had different plans for me, so I started assistant pastoring in church, but at the same time I was offered a job selling coins. Now, at the time, I had no idea what selling coins even meant. I mean, do you go door to door and knock on people's doors and they open up and you're like, do you want to buy my coin? I had no concept. And I knew what bullion was, basically, but I didn't know it came in coin form. As far as I knew, it was just in bars and ingots and things of that nature. And you bought it and owned it on paper. But I learned. So in 2001, I was hired by a small company that employed about, I don't know, about 35, 40 people in Beaumont, Texas, and was one of their brokers, if you want to call it a broker, one who buys and sells. Basically, we would put out advertisements, excuse me, in various magazines at the time, and I think we even did a commercial once, if I remember correctly. And people would call us up. So there was no cold calling or anything like that. People would call us up and they'd be interested in a product. We'd present it to them. They became a client, and I serviced their account like any of the other reps would, for as long as they would have me, or we would deal with them. And it's really was for a collector's market, but it also had investment potential. Most of those kinds of coin or rare coin companies sell what's known as bullion type coins, and they also American and foreign, like most of you have heard of South African Kruger Ants or Canadian maple leaves or Chinese pandas, and the list goes on and on. Austrian Philharmonics is another example. I think Australian kookaburras, and the list is endless. But there's many countries that produce bullion coins. We pretty much dealt in that. But on the flip side of the coin was what we know as numismatic valued coins. And numismatic valued coins are what we call rare coins. Meant to us anyway, and most people, meant pre 1933 gold and silver coins mostly. Of course, you can go all the way back to the birth of the country and the colonial days, and there was colonial coppers and things like that too. But for today's topic, we're going to talk mostly about bullion, kind of bullion versus American rare coins pre 1933. So I'm going to talk about that more than anything. It's just going to be a general discussion or a general rambling from me. But to familiarize you and to also let you know, if you're in the Fort Worth, Dallas, Grapevine, South Lake, Keller area, if you need a coin appraisal, you're in the home and you need someone to come to your home and do an appraisal. I only charge $50 for a house call. It doesn't matter from there for 1 hour or for 3 hours, just $50. And I'm not there to buy your coins. I'm there to tell you the value, the general value, daily market value, and to give you some ideas how to sell them if you want to sell them, where to sell them, the proper way to present them and sell them, the improper way. Because there are plenty of people out there like these little cash for gold places. They don't care what it is. All they care about is the gold weight or the silver weight. And they're going to give you a percentage below spot so they have room to make money. Most of these places either have no concept about the rarity of a coin, or they don't care, or they're going to tell you it's only worth so much. And then if it's really a rare coin, they could turn around and sell it for a lot more, and that's how they make their money. Honestly, dishonestly, in between, gray area. The point being, if you have some old broken jewelry, 14 karat or something like that, 18 karat, and you want to get rid of it, cash for gold places are for those kinds of things. But they're not for coins. And I don't care what kind of coin it is. Now, if it's a bullion coin and it's not a certified coin, which I'll explain what certified means in a bit, but if it's just a bullion coin, it's beat up, it's just 1 ounce of gold, and it's all it's meant to be is an ounce of gold or 1 ounce of silver or whatever size it happens to be, not certified, what we call raw, then you could take those to a cash for gold place and get whatever they're going to give you, because that'll be they'll probably give you an appropriate value minus their percentage below melt, so they can make their money too. If a place like that gives you more than melt or at melt, I don't know. They might be speculating and they're hoping it jumps up and they make their money that way. But look, most of the cash for gold places will not give you exact spot price or melt, because they have to make their money. They're not providing a service to you for free. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just one may have a bigger spread than the other one, so you just have to find a good place. But I don't like that type of the market, or that type of area of the market. Boring, doesn't mean anything. So to me anyway, it may mean something to you as far as if you have some bullion or whatnot and you just want to dump it to get the money out of it, that's fine, but not very exciting. There's nothing much to it. And so we're going to talk about bullion a little bit. So we were taken off the gold standard in 1933. That was, if you remember, 1933 was a depression. And Roosevelt took us off the gold standard. In a sense, it was illegal to own gold. I mean, some people were allowed to keep coins in collections for numismatic purposes or rare coin collecting purposes. But as far as having it for money, for usage, for stacked up in a corner, we were taken off the gold standard, and it was illegal to hoard it that way. And all that type of gold was recalled and melted down and turned into bars and stuck in Fort Knox, supposedly, right? And then paper money was issued, or what we called fiat currency, which an explanation of fiat means kind of fake. And it just represents wealth that's being held to you by the government. Where when you had a gold coin prior to 1933, you had something that was actually real. I mean, you had actual wealth in your hand. And this is an explanation that a lot of people have used before. But a $20 gold piece, when it was being used as money before 33, which was basically an ounce, or what we called a double eagle, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But remember, it was all only 90%. So a gold coin was 90% gold and 10% copper. The silver coin, a 1 ounce silver coin, or all silver coins, basically, were 90% silver and 10% copper. They're never pure 100% gold or silver unless they're bullion, which is meant to be bought and just held for weight. So all coins that we used for money back prior to 1933 were 90%. Okay, so if you take in a beat up coin that's not certified and it's only worth maybe its weight, they're going to tell you, well, it's only 90%, so 10% of this weight, we're going to take that off, and blah, 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 blah. So you got to expect that too. If you go into these cash for gold places or any place like that that's just buying it for weight purposes, more likely they're sending it to a foundry to be melted down, and they got to pay foundry fees to do that, and that's all real. It's all overhead. So that's why there's a spread when you sell it below spot or melt or what have you. So back to the pre-1933 coins. They came in various sizes. They came a 1/10 ounce, 1/4 ounce, 1/2 ounce, and then the 1 ounce. The first and largest gold coin that we really used, or I should say the largest gold coin that we really used, was the 1/2 ounce coin. And the 1/2 ounce coin, we just called it an eagle. Eventually, right after the gold rush, we came out with a 1 ounce coin. So naturally, we just called that a double eagle because the first one was an eagle, and then it had a $20 face value, and it was a double eagle. To get back to the explanation, to kind of put values of wealth in your hand, actual real wealth in your hand compared to fiat currency. Excuse me. I started to explain a little analogy or something, and I got sidetracked, and I'll do that many times. It's the way my brain works, ADD, I'm all over the place. But if you had a $20 gold piece prior to 33, and if a man wanted to go buy a suit, so he bought a tailor-made suit, pair of shoes, and a tie, it would cost him basically the $20 gold piece. That was kind of the going rate. Today, if you still had that basic $20 gold piece that didn't have a lot of numismatic value attached to it, just the basic fair market value, it'd probably be worth, depending on where gold is, probably worth about $1,400. Well, that's about the same price that you're going to pay for a nice tailor-made suit, maybe a pair of shoes and a tie. About $1,400. Nice, decent, bespoke, suit. And but $20 today, if you had a $20 bill, it would barely even buy you a tie. So that kind of is just a little bit of an illustration of what actual wealth means compared to fiat currency. You still had that $20 gold piece that would still buy you, even though the face value is only $20, it would still buy you a nice suit because it's real wealth that you can hold in your hand. So, and that goes with bullion and what we call very generic pre-33 coins, which is kind of a third area of collecting, which I'll get into in another video. But okay, so let's talk a little bit about bullion. We didn't even really have bullion coins until 1986, when Reagan was in the White House, and he authorized the United States Mint to start producing what's known as gold American Eagles and silver American Eagles. Later on, they started producing platinum, and now they have palladium. We're just going to start with the two basics. So in 86, they made the 1 ounce silver coin, the silver American Eagle, still being produced today. And then they made the 1 ounce, half ounce, quarter ounce, and 10th ounce gold American Eagle, which is still being produced today. And of course, there are, like I said before, there are some newer ones that they've come out with since then. There's the gold buffalo, and then the platinum, and now palladium, and maybe they have rhodium. I don't know. I don't remember. I'm not that interested in new bullion coins. Sometimes the mint will issue kind of a special issue that's very limited, and those are kind of neat. But really, in my opinion, they're worth basically weight and not much more, with a few exceptions. And we can talk about those exceptions maybe in another video when I, decide to make another video and talk about bullion, which is, I think, is kind of boring. But bullion's bullion. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about the pre-1933, which I like. Now, pre-1933 gold coins, and I'm going to focus or talk a little bit about and focus on the $20 gold piece, the double eagles. There are double eagles that are worth $100,000 for one coin because it's so rare. There's only a few of them made, thus rarity. And with pre-1933, or any coins for that matter, there are what's known as certification companies. Now, you need to take some notes on this one because there's a lot of confusion. And a lot of this is my opinion, but it's also the opinion of almost all professional rare coin experts or numismatists, someone who studies and knows rare coins. And there are really only two certification companies. Two. That's it. No more. Just two. And that's PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service. They're located out in Newport Beach, California, or in that area. And the other one is NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, and they're located in Sarasota, Florida. Back in 1986, there was one company, PCGS. About a year later, a couple of people broke away from PCGS, so they all started together and went out to Florida and started NGC. They've been competing ever since. In my opinion, they're both the same. They both grade the same way. You have numerous numismatists or graders that look at your coin under a 40 power microscope. All come into agreement. They have 4 different guys that may look at a coin independently, and then they come together and they decide on a grade or condition. And coins are graded on a scale of 1 to 70. 1 being bad, like something that's been run over by a railroad car. and 70 being perfect. Now, pre-1933 coins, you're almost never going to get 70s. Anything above the 60, 60 is considered brilliant uncirculated, or BU. Okay, and so for an antique coin, anything above a 60 is pretty special because the coins more than likely were released into circulation to be used as money. So if you find them as BU 60 or brilliant uncirculated, or what they call MS, mint state 60 or above, you have something pretty special. Now, there still are some antique pre-33 gold and silver that it is pretty common to have them above a 60, like the Morgan silver dollar, for instance, that was first produced in 1878 up into 1921. And there was a break in there in 1904. Then they came back in 1921, made them for 1 year, and then switched to another design called the P silver dollar. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But anyway, so there are certain coins, pre-1933 gold and silver, that they're so plentiful, and they sat around in a vault and were rediscovered and escaped the meltdown, that there are plenty of examples that are brilliant uncirculated. So for those particular coins, a 60 condition or mint state 60 isn't really that special. I mean, it's better than if it's beat up, obviously, and worn down from usage. But and understand this too: when they grade a coin, they're grading it on the wear pattern or it being rubbed down over time. They're not grading it on what we call bag marks or contact marks. Back then, when they made the coins, they came off the assembly line and were thrown in burlap sacks and thrown on the back of covered wagons or trains and made their way to be distributed. But so they bumped into each other, and they have what's known as bag marks or contact marks, scratches or little dings and dents. That has nothing to do with the grade. Okay, that has something to do with nice eye appeal, but nothing to do with the grade of the coin. So you could have two Morgan silver dollars, for instance, and they could both certify by NGC, let's say, in a mint state 63 condition, right? 3 grade points above 60, which is brilliant uncirculated. One could look pristine, and the other one could have a bunch of bag marks or contact marks. Excuse me. So, and obviously you're going to want the coin that has the better eye appeal. So just understand that condition or certification grade has nothing to do with bag marks or contact marks or toning from oxidation, for silver. Gold doesn't really tone, but silver does. So not all MS or mint state 60 certified coins will look the same, or 62s or 63s or whatever they happen to be. Now, there may be a particular coin, like a Morgan silver dollar, that certifies in a mint state 66, let's say, for that particular year or that particular mint mark, and it could be worth quite a bit of money because it's the finest example certified and known to exist between both of the two certification companies. And in that case, we call that a conditional rarity. And because it could be a population of one with none better. And if you get a coin that's a pop one for that condition, understand there could be many more, but in less condition. But if that is a population of one and there's none finer, you call it a pop one, none finer for both companies. That coin, even though it's only 1 ounce of silver, or actually 1 ounce, 90% silver, right? That coin could be worth $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 depending on which coin it is. Where a very, very common Morgan silver dollar in the same condition, what we call a common date. There's about 22 common dates out of all the dates of Morgans. Could be worth, about $45. So 45, maybe 45, 49 wholesale right now for the common dates. So basically 50, and retail about 75. So there is a spread there, and we could talk more about that. But anyway, the most collected silver coin pre-1933 are the Morgan silver dollars. So I could really talk a lot about that. And then, of course, what is known as double eagles, the $20 gold pieces. There's basically two kinds, I guess you could say. There are the Liberty heads, or Lady Liberty heads, or cornets, or what have you. And then after that, there's what's known as the Augustus St. Gaudens design coins. We just call them Saints or St. Gaudens. And I'll break those down in more detail. We can talk about Liberty heads or cornets, that there's type 1s, type 2s, and type 3s, and why there's the three different types. And then we get into, in 1908, we get into the St. Gaudens, and there's a motto, then there's a no motto, and talk about that. Of course, that goes from 1908 or 07, 1907, excuse me, 1907 to 1933 when we're taking out the gold standard. But that's about all I'm going to talk about now, is understand that there's pre-1933 gold and silver, which is, in my opinion, what you should really look for. And then there's modern bullion coins. Now, of course, there's other change that we have in our pocket, like nickels and dimes and pennies and quarters, and there's exceptions of very collectible coins in there. I like the 1937D Denver three-legged buffalo nickel, which is highly collected, and the 1909 VDBS Indian or wheatback penny, which I could tell you more about that or the 1955 double die penny. So there's exceptions of other coins that we would carry in our pockets that are worth quite a bit of money. But generally speaking, if you're a coin collector and investor, you should focus on pre-1933 gold and silver, and then modern bullion. And there are other little sub areas, and like I said, we have generic pre-33 gold coins that are actually better to collect or hoard or what have you than bullion. And then there's modern bullion coins that they release in very small quantities, and they can be certified too. And those will almost always certify 69s or 70s, near perfect to perfect, because that's the way they're made. Modern bullion coins aren't meant to be used as money, like we would do pocket change. So them being certified in a 69 or 70 perfect condition is actually quite common. So it's not that big a deal. But if you have a very limited release of modern bullion coin, which there are examples, and you do have them certified in a 70 condition, let's say, they could have a very low population, and they could be worth quite a bit of money. So that's like a different area. It's not typical bullion. But we will talk more about that in a future video. I just wanted to talk about just a general explanation of coins, certified coins, pre-33 bullion, and to just give you some heads up on what you should be looking for. So in conclusion, pre-1933 gold and silver, and then of course modern bullion. It has an interesting area for collecting. And then in the in-between, which is errors or specialized issues, something that's interesting in what I call more pocket change. And there are coins in there, in that little area, that are worth quite a bit, in the thousands of dollars. And we'll touch on some of those in a future video. But if you like these videos, you like the ones previously, that I put out, so forth and so on. Please go ahead and subscribe and like this video. I need the likes, just like anybody else does. And leave a comment. So subscribe, become a follower. Look for future videos about collecting and investment grade collecting, right? Art, antiques, and all things in between. Modern day pop culture, there are things from the 90s that are very collectible. And even, 20 years now, you remember vintage is anything 20 years or older. Some people say 25, but it's basically 20. So 20 years ago was the year 2000. So, young people like to collect anything from their childhood. So if you remember Street Sharks and GI Joes, not the big tall GI Joes, but the short GI Joes, Star Wars figures, and just basically pop culture. Anything that's pop culture related, toys, anything like that. Uh, Things from music, posters, uh, you know, vinyls. Hot collectible now. It's made a big comeback. Young people love vinyl, and I used to sell vinyl, and I'm back to collecting it again now. I found some great Beach Boys albums the other day. Snatched them up for a lot less than they're worth in a flea market. But anyway, let me go ahead and conclude this. So, like I said, make sure that you like this video or don't like it. If you don't like it, give me a thumbs down and tell me why. Leave some good comments and then subscribe. And we'll see you soon in a future video. Stranger 5 out. Happy collecting.